Doing good? Ready for lunch? Need to stand up? No? All right. Like you said, my name's Kurt Hurst. I work for Hurst Farm Supply. I'm an AMS consultant. What that means is we handle the Field Connect. John Deere changed the name from CropSense to Field Connect when they went to a full public release with it. So it's officially branded Field Connect now. Myself and another gentleman that worked for Hurst Farm Supply, we handle all the install and service and support for the Field Connect units, and we also do guidance. So we're kind of a dual focus team there at Hurst Farm Supply. But we've had the privilege of working with TAWC the last two years. I think we've got 10 units out with y'all across varying growers in the area. And so we've been able to look at this technology, learn from it, and really gain some good insight into the information that can be gleaned by looking at what the crop is using from the moisture that's available in the soil, how varying your application rate, different techniques can actually increase your yield at the end of the season and possibly save you money on your input cost. Field Connect, basically, you're probably going to hear from a couple of different guys, AquaSpy, EcoDrip. We've got similar products. They're probes that are augured down into the crop row. They look at the total moisture that's in the soil profile. In this area, we use a 40-inch probe for the Field Connect unit. We've got sensors at 4 inches, 8 inches, 12 inches, 20 inches, and 40 inches. We've seen that, if you'll notice, those sensors they're concentrated in the top 20 inches of the soil. The reason they're like that on the Field Connect unit is because most of your root activity is in that top 2 foot of soil. So we've seen with different testing that if there's more concentration of sensors down at the bottom, you actually get a skewed result of the water that's available to the crop. And so that's why Deere decided to concentrate those sensors at the top. The basic setup of the system is similar to competing products in the field. The probe, which is augured down in the crop row. You've also got a gateway, which is the communication center of the system. Basically, this probe is going to take sensor readings every 30 minutes and transmit it to the gateway. Every 2 hours, the gateway is going to upload that data to a secure website where you as the grower have control over your data. You've got access to it 24/7 as long as you've got internet access. It doesn't matter what device you're on. You can access it from a smartphone, from a tablet, from a computer. Anywhere you can get online, you have access to this data. Another thing that's important is that it's a dual telemetry system. It's got satellite and cell coverage. How many of you guys know here in West Texas that once you get off of any kind of main highway, your cell phone signal seems to drop off significantly? That's why we've made it important to have a secondary form of being able to get that data out, which is a satellite connection. This system will try to connect with a cellular connection. If it can't, it switches over to satellite and uploads the data. The probe can take as much data as it can handle, but if you don't have access to it, if it can't reliably be transmitted up to the web servers, if you don't have access to it, it's not going to help you make decisions. So that's why we've gone with a dual telemetry system. The real power of the system is the website, because it's going to give you real-time access to your moisture level that's in the field. You're able to view your data basically in 3 types of graphs. They've actually added a 4th type of graph this year. You've got a line graph, a stat graph, and a sum graph. Most of the time you'll look at your sum graph first. Basically it is what it says it is. It's a sum total of all the total moisture that's available in the field. The line graph shows all your sensors at varying depths they're on a common axis. So that means your wettest sensor is at the top, your driest sensor is at the bottom. The stack graph's not on a common axis. It just goes from 4 inches down to 40 inches. The new graph that they've added in this year is you're able to see a bar graph that shows you daily moisture change. So it shows you a net change day to day of how much moisture was either added or taken out of the soil profile. And if you look, there's handouts that you should have got when you came in the door, or there's some extra on the table. You can flip through and get a look at these graphs as we're going through this. You're also able to document your water practices, rainfall events, weather events, different things that happen throughout the course of the season. This comes into play, especially if you're working with a crop consultant and you've got several different people that are looking at the information. You can all stay on one page together. Basically, you've got like a shared notebook where you can make notes. Everybody's able to see it. Everybody's able to add to it. That way, it's easy to stay together on the decisions that you're making and the information that you're able to see. This right here is some graph from Eddie's Corn. It's on the pivot. So this starts about, I think we installed on the 21st of May, and this goes up until the 13th. So you can see he started out. This blue line right here is his top budget line. The red line, like Dr. Krieg was saying earlier, is 30% below field capacity, which is the blue line at the top. So Eddie stayed at the first of the season pretty consistent up towards the top of his target zone. Right here, we turn the pivots off, let it dry down a little bit. This is the pivot got turned back on. You can see here these couple of spikes. And then this is that big rainfall event, the middle of July, where I think you said you got 2.5 inches at the barn, but at the probe, we actually registered almost 4 inches that made it into the profile. So there was really good. It refilled the profile, got him back up to the top portion. And you can see these water events, these irrigation events, and then the stair step down. This is that last rainfall 2 days ago. The drip, you can see similar information. Starting out, you were above your top budget line. These budget lines are set depending on soil type. So clay loam is gonna have a different target zone than, say, a sandy loam, depending on the amount of water that it's able to hold and able to release readily to the plant. This right here, you can see here's that big rain event in the middle of July, which really was a great time for that to come through. This is the daily moisture change, like I was telling you about the bar graph. So you can see, here's that big rainfall event. If you look right here, you can see some of these where the PET on this day probably should have been more around 3/10 of an inch, 4/10 of an inch. We're actually pushing out of the profile close to 6/10 of an inch. What that says, or what that shows you on these days, where the moisture change is actually greater than ET, what that means is at this point he was pushing water out of the bottom of the profile because he was so wet from that big rainfall in the middle of July. So you'll see, you can actually get a really good indication of how much moisture is being used by the plant. Also, if you've got too much moisture, if you're using water that you're not able to actually get to the root system, it's just passing through. This is the daily moisture change on the drip. Similar graph, similar information. I've got all of these, so if you've got questions about it, you can get with me afterwards. One of the things I wanted to point out here, this is just it shows the stepping in between irrigation events. You can see the stair step down. This is your 4-inch sensor. the blue line up here is your 20-inch sensor. So what that says is, on these irrigation events, you see the 4, 12, 8, and 20-inch spike almost simultaneously. So what that means is the irrigation event is reaching down at least to the 20-inch sensor. There's not a whole lot of movement on the 40-inch sensor, which is normal. And you can see stepping, which means the crop is pulling moisture, pulling nutrients out all the way down to that 20-inch zone. So you've got really good root activity. This right here is the drip. You can see the stepping in the same way. Actually, if you notice over here, towards the end of July, first week of August, when we had some really hot days, we started to actually see a little bit of stepping in the 40-inch zone, which means we were starting to pull moisture all the way down to 40 inches. Right before this, or right after this is, where we had this good rain on the 13th, where we saw the moisture level spike back up and almost completely refill the profile on this field. That's really all I've got. I'm going over the graphs. I won't take up any more of your time. If you guys have questions, especially any of your growers that we've got units in, if you've got questions about the data that you've been seeing, get with me afterwards. Or if you've just got questions about the Field Connect product, talk to me. There's also business cards on there if you need to get in touch with us. Our cell phone numbers are on there. Thank you.
Any questions for Kurt? Thanks, sir.